You ever have one of those moments in life where you just stop, look around, and you think, when did everything just seem to flip upside down? When did the world stop making sense? Because that's what I've been feeling lately. And I'm not saying that to be dramatic. I'm saying that because in the last year alone, I've lost 4 jobs. And it's not because I'm lazy, not because I don't work hard or anything like that. In fact, I'm a good worker. All my employers, my managers have said that I'm a good worker, that I'm consistent, I go above and beyond, all that type of thing. But what I did is apparently something that is now wrong and something people don't want to hear. And is I just pointed out the truth. I spoke up when people weren't doing their jobs. I refused to just blend in with the apathy that just seems to rule everything nowadays. And every time, boom, I was the problem. Not the people just skating by, not the people hiding in the corner on their phones or avoiding responsibility. Somehow it's me, the one who cared, the one who wanted things to be done right, things to be orderly. And that just got me thinking, maybe that I'm not actually less out of alignment. Maybe what it is that maybe it's just the world that we live in. It just feels like we're living in a world that's been inverted. But the things that used to be virtues, respect, honor, dignity, accountability, they're now treated like they're flaws. And the things that used to be shameful, like laziness, ignorance, disrespect, are now just, part of the normal. It's part of the status quo. And it's pretty much expected now to be that way, to be unapathetic, to be negative, to just not care. I kind of look at it as people just accept the mediocrity. They're fine with everything being subpar. Subprime loans, foreclosing. I mean, everything's just subprime. Everything's fake. Sports are fake with betting. Just things like that matter. And people used to take pride in their work. They used to care. They used to show up and have that expression like, I'm ready to work and I'm ready to do what I have to do to not just be successful for myself, but for my team. But now it just kind of feels like we've entered this era of effortless mediocrity. Everyone wants the absolute bare minimum. The bare minimum effort, the bare minimum responsibility, the bare minimum connection, the bare minimum consciousness. It feels like people are sort of just sleepwalking through life, dumbed down, numbed out, and just kind of calling it normal. And if you're a person who still cares, still has standards, and still actually wants to do something and do things right, you're seen like the threat, almost as if you're the problem. You're too much, you're intense, you're making everyone uncomfortable. No, I'm making everyone aware, but awareness is just uncomfortable for everybody. People don't like when the light is shined upon, when the truth is set out, because then they have to answer for who they truly are, deep down. And it wasn't like I was walking around screaming at work. I wasn't having meltdowns. It was simply just me speaking up. There was times where even my managers or my bosses at these jobs would be not doing what they're supposed to be doing and chatting up the other workers not working. And it just creates that precedence. And it's almost like the environment that they want. I was told at my last job that they would rather have people getting along and getting together than having production. And it was really just sad. And it's just simple things that I ask for at work. It's like, hey man, can you help me out? Hey, we really need to get moving. We need to get this done. Why is it that I'm the only one that's like doing everything right now? And their responses weren't gratitude or teamwork or even trying to take even a basic accountability. It was just this silent, simmering resentment. This look where people get where you can tell, Oh, how dare you make me aware of my own laziness. Managers would rather protect weakness than reward strength. Workplaces would rather avoid conflict than support the person actually trying. And eventually the same pattern every time. I become the problem. I become disruptive. Not because I did anything wrong, but because I disrupted the equilibrium, or excuse me, the equilibrium of mediocrity. When the precedence is set by the managers and the people who are in charge and the people that work are supposed to be looking up to, they're like, oh, well, if my boss is going to slack off, I'm going to slack off too. And it's just depressive, man. It's so hard to go to work every day, do the right thing, be cheerful, be right, want to be helpful and help out your teammates, your coworkers, and to not get reciprocated, to not have that in return. And it's just day after day after day. I mean, again, at my most recent example at work, I would have people asking me to help them. Like, for example, say someone needed something cooked, because I was a pizza cook, and they needed something dropped in the fryer when I was already busy doing something, but I had no problem helping them out. But then yet, as I would drop the food in the fryer and get it done, and I would look over at that same person who asked me to do it for them, they're over on their phone, they're talking to somebody else, and they're not doing anything constructive. And it just strikes you in your chest, and you're like, is this how it's gonna be? Is this how the world is? Is this how people are inside? But it's just like there's no soul. But here's the thing, though, and this really took me a long time to figure out. I always sort of knew it, but I'm an introvert. I'm not necessarily shy or antisocial. I'm just someone who observes before he speaks. Someone who doesn't need the spotlight. Someone whose strength comes from the inside. It comes from my eternal. The kingdom of God is within. And as introverts, we actually intimidate people. Not in like necessarily a physical scary way or something that like threatens their life. But we threaten them because we hold the mirror up to them. They see us in our comfortable silence and in our peace, and they can see our true selves, and because they might not necessarily feel that they can be themselves, they get jealous or whatever else wants to happen, however else they want to feel. The extroverts are dependent on noise and attention and the constant validation to feel in control. At least that's just from my perspective. I could be wrong. But, I think there's a psychological truth that extroverts often resent introverts because introverts reflect back everything that the extrovert is running from. An introvert is calm, which exposes the extrovert's chaos. It's the inner and the outer worlds colliding. And this is a problem that we have so often. An introvert is self-contained, which exposes the introvert's or the extrovert's insecurity. An introvert is someone who is thoughtful, which exposes an extrovert's impulsiveness. An introvert is self-aware, which exposes the extrovert's lack of reflection. And I hope I'm making sense. In workplaces, especially one full of narcissistic personalities, introverts become a threat. Because introverts don't play social games, they don't suck up, they don't like or need to be liked. They just want to do the damn job right. They just want to give love where love needs to be given and where it wants to be. And others just don't think that way. They just want to get in and get out. To insecure extroverts, that's terrifying. It's the ultimate fear, and they hate what it reflects back to them. Their true inner self. This divide gets even deeper when you look at it spiritually. People who are quote unquote awake, people who actually think and reflect, observe, they question things. They cannot function in systems that are built for unconscious people. It just doesn't happen, it won't work. We always buck the system. We always end up in trouble. And for a lot of us, like myself, it can take a long time to truly learn those things and truly see that Yes, even though I am standing up for myself and standing up for what I believe in, it's often going to get me in trouble. And it's costing me more than just my job. It's costing me relationships and opportunities that would have me further in life than I am now. And just opportunities that would make me happy, And, I have to take responsibility for myself. But it is just hard to live in a world that is the way that it is, where you don't fit in, you don't belong. The modern world rewards people who don't ask questions. The modern world rewards people who don't push back, who don't think deeply, or just don't care. Flat out, they just don't care. You know, the world and the current modern system, society that we live in, they reward the people who don't notice the cracks in the system. Being spiritually awake in a spiritually asleep world feels like being the only guy who showed up to class on test day and realizing everyone else is still half drunk from the party the night before. It's like you're playing life in HD, but they're playing it in 144p. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're living in a completely different dimension. You know what I'm saying? You're living in something that people can't fathom. You know, it's like Barbie girl in a Barbie world. She's so used to the plastic and the fakeness that when she sees something that is real, when she sees a Ken or a man who is real, who isn't fake and is not afraid to express himself, she tenses up. She doesn't know what to do. That might be a lame example, but that's kind of what it's like. And then when you try to point these things out, when you try to discuss the things that I'm trying to say, you just ultimately become the enemy. And let's be honest, the job market is just broken, guys. We all know it. Nobody cares, nobody tries. Nobody has pride in anything anymore. It's been that way for a long time now, especially since 9/11. It's just like everybody has tuned out, turned away, and has just gotten lost in the sauce. People show up late on a consistent basis, calling consistently, they go shifts, they do the bare minimum, but yet somehow they're the ones that are rewarded, which is just soul crushing. They're the ones who stay employed, they're the ones that actually get along with people and with the bosses. And meanwhile, it's the people who actually work who get punished. Because when you work hard in a lazy environment, you make other people look bad. It shows other people's what they lack and what they can't do or what they just refuse to do. And then instead of just rising to your example, which is what a leader does, they'd rather push you out. They'd rather just phase you out and say, no, you're not welcome here, dude. And it's that way pretty much everywhere. It is so hard to find a good job that is not just a job that you like to do, but the management and your bosses that you get along with, and having coworkers that you can either get along with or at least tolerate, and you guys can get the job done. I've had lots of jobs in my 33 years of being alive. I was even in the Navy for 4.5 years, and not even in the military, believe it or not, is there as good a teamwork as you think there would be, unfortunately. One of the best jobs I had for teamwork was Burger King, and it's just because everyone knew and understood their jobs and what to do, and they knew that everybody needed to work together so that they could have their breaks, so that they could stand around and just enjoy themselves. And it's just ridiculous how most people don't have that at all. They just want to slack off and oh, not my problem, not my problem. And it's always put on that one or two people, and then they end up snapping or just getting extremely stressed out because they stuff it down and keep it quiet because they want to keep their job. And it's just like the conundrum. What do you do? What do you do? It's all upside down, completely reversed. And it's almost like everything is designed to fail. This lack of depth shows up everywhere, and it's not just at work. Relationships these days feel shallow. Friends feel conditional. People don't listen. People don't connect. People don't think critically at all. It's not even taught. in schools. You're just taught to read and regurgitate information and then dump it. So it's no wonder why people are the way they are, because it's really not even their fault. It's the conditioning of society, of schools, and our elders, and our governments, and it's all the surface level dopamine hits, like texting, scrolling, distraction. It brings about anything but awareness. It keeps people from looking from within, from seeing the light, from getting the big picture. And it's sad because we were warned about these things. We were told about these things, that these things would happen. People aren't living, they're just coping. You can't build a meaningful world with people who are just checked out mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You can't build a community on apathy. But that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing a world where everyone is connected with like 5G, but nobody cares. We've become disconnected because of that. All this instant access and, the sharing of our day-to-day lives and these things. And, let's just be honest, most people don't really care. But yet because of social media and all that instant access and the internet, it's this constant game of keeping up with the Joneses and trying to maintain an image, and you just become somebody that you're really not. And it just drains the soul and the spirit from you, the joy from your life. But here's the twist, and maybe the point of this entire commentary, I guess you could call it, this discussion that I'm trying to have and articulate and make sense. Because again, I have to take accountability and reflect upon myself, but understand myself and what happens at the same time. Because every time I exploded, every time I spoke up, every time I refused to accept mediocrity, I wasn't failing. I was being redirected. Because people like us, people who feel differently, think deeply, observe deeply, we don't belong in places that reward numbness. We don't belong in places that are subprime and subpar. We are all God's children. We all deserve the highest and the best. It's our God-given right to be prosperous and be abundant and be happy. Spiritual people, introverts, not that extroverts can't be spiritual, but, people on that path, on that walk of life, we disrupt systems that are built upon silence. We expose what people are trying to ignore. We break illusions without even trying. That's why anytime, ever since I've been young, when I walk into a room, it's like everything goes silent. You can just feel that energy switch. It's like a suction cup for the air being sucked out of a room. And as a young person, and even as an adult, if you're not aware of the things I'm talking about, you see it as a weakness or a flaw. And you're even told and taught that it's a flaw, that you're the way that you are. But it's not a flaw. It's your strength. It's your armor of God. It's Excalibur. It's your sword. It's what you're meant to be here to do. A dangerous strength, but it's a strength nonetheless. And we have to learn to hone it, to harness it. And maybe this is why life pushed me out of those jobs, and why there's millions of other people out there in the same boat as me who have had the same experience. Maybe that's why all of us are being pushed out of jobs. Maybe we were never supposed to stay there. Maybe we were supposed to see and really see how upside down everything is. And maybe I'm supposed to talk about it like I see a lot of others do. In sharing these experiences, we share in our wealth and thus spreading our light to other people and making the world better, making it a difference. It's like the Buddha said that if you have a single candle in the darkness, it's still a light, but a candle can light other candles, and then you have a bunch of light, a large light, even if you get enough candles. And that's why we're supposed to talk about it and discuss it. So if you're watching this and you feel like you don't fit in the world, maybe that's because you're not supposed to. Maybe your purpose is to build something new and not to blend in with what's broken, what's amiss, what's dark. Maybe your standards are high for a reason. Maybe your awareness is sharper for a reason too, you know? Maybe your honesty is uncomfortable for a reason. You're meant to be that light. You're meant to be the uncomfortable truth, the elephant in the room. Whether anybody listens to the message or even understands or to get it, that's not up for you. You know, it's not up for you to decide. That's really none of your worry. That's what we're put here to do. We're put here to make people uncomfortable or to give them the truth in order to help them all evolve so that we may all evolve, you know? The world might be upside down right now, and for a long time it's been, but that just means it's our job, the awake ones, the introverts, thinkers, feelers, you know, people who actually give a damn, to turn everything right side up again. Because once you see the world clearly, you can't unsee it. And once you know the truth, you can't just go back to pretending. Thank you for listening, and as always, keep thinking, keep growing, and don't ever let this upside down world convince you that your clarity is a flaw. It might just be your superpower.